Rodeo marks a turning point for several characters and finally sets Suellen on the path to self-respect, albeit through the love of a good man. In that respect, Rodeo might be one of the most consequential episodes in the series to date. Ray Krebbs is too heartbroken to read the letters he's been getting from Donna Culver, and given the fact that he was too lovelorn to tolerate Garnet McGee on the radio when he first met Donna, you might conclude that Ray has a bit of a problem dealing with rejection. No time to dwell, though, because it's time for the Ewing Rodeo, which is not to be confused with the Ewing Barbecue, or the Oil Barons Ball, or the annual Daughters of the Alamo Cotillion. The Ewings do a lot of partying, is the bottom line. In the house, JR is upset that Suellen has cut him off sexually. She's also cut off John Ross from her role as mother, though, and that's something that actually gives her guilt. Ray blows off Lucy as he preps for the rodeo, and Ellie laments to Bobby that bodies don't hold up, hinting at her own worry about the biopsy results from the dove hunt. Bobby asks her point blank if anything is wrong, and she lies and says she's just tired, continuing the trend of problems that could be solved with a single conversation. Suellen interrupts and asks for a ride into town. At Ray's house, we can see that he has a pile of envelopes from Donna. Hey, Ray? You know, you can open those things and there's stuff inside, right? Maybe important stuff. Anyway, we see why he refuses to open them, as a newspaper clipping reveals that Donna has reunited with her husband Sam. Okay, I appreciate the cinematic language of show don't tell, but A, this barely qualifies since it's a newspaper headline that we have to read. And B, I think we can all agree that clipping out an article about the lady you had a fling with getting back together with her husband and posting it on your mirror is weird, right? I can understand a picture of Donna, even an article about her. She's a lovely woman and who wouldn't want to look at her, but cutting out the article that announces their marriage reconciliation seems like, I don't know, a really pathetic attempt at self-harm. Speaking of self-harm, Pamela finds a flyer for the Ewing Rodeo in Digger's things and warns him not to go. She's afraid he'll reveal John Ross's paternity and everyone will regret that conversation. At Ewing Oil, Alan
Beam
tells JR that the Barnes for Congress movement is gaining momentum. Too much momentum. It's learning, gaining a mind of its own. Soon it will approach the singularity if someone doesn't step in to steady it. Alan has a list of names, but JR goes in one better. John Ross Jr. has a plan. Bobby drops Suellen off in town for some shopping, and that's where she meets Dusty Farlow, a handsome cowboy who helps her with her packages.
He was just helping with my packages.
Yeah, he was. Even Bobby notices how impressed Suellen is by the strapping young stranger. At the rodeo, Kristen is impressed by the size of the gathering. JR flirts with her before Kristen gets impudent and badmouths Suellen. In a strangely sweet moment, JR warns her to back off because his loyalties are with his wife. Kristen takes the hint. Incidentally, Dusty Farlow is a competitor in the rodeo, and he and Suellen engage in some hot, steamy eye sex from afar.
Nobody's gonna know.
They're gonna know.
How would they know?
I also need to point out how great Suellen looks in rodeo gear. The costumers must have looked at Linda Gray the way that a child looks at a new Barbie. Hey, there's rodeo Suellen, shopping in the city Suellen, and alcoholic but still somehow fabulous Suellen. Speaking of Linda Gray looking great, I believe this is the first time in the series that Suellen actually smiles. I'm not talking about forced pleasantry or smirking at Pamela and Lucy or even that passive-aggressive snarl she does. When she's with Dusty, she legitimately smiles. I don't know. It's nice. Jock, meanwhile, patronizes some radical feminists who want to compete in the rodeo. There's no reason for this scene to exist other than writer Camille Marchetta sneaking in some needling of the patriarchy.
Maybe next year, sweetheart, okay?
Elsewhere, Bobby and Pam speculate on whether Digger will show up and ruin the event by spilling the beans about John Ross. Bobby heads off to ride, so Pamela tries to sneak away and gets caught by Miss Ellie. Ellie tells her to relax and try to heal herself after the miscarriage. Jock and JR discuss whether Miss Ellie is okay, and Jock talks about finding the right time to tell her about Amanda, his first wife. Since he's waiting for the right time and this is a drama, you can bet it will be the worst possible time. Suellen and Dusty bond. He says that he thought about settling down, but he always gets the itch to move on. He admits to being a bit of a playboy, but he also says that he feels very comfortable with Suellen. Oh, that's the oldest line in the book. It's apparent that Dusty is getting the full Poochie the dog treatment here, with his magical, piercing blue eyes and lonesome cowboy act, and everyone extolling his virtues when he's not on screen.
They have scored him at 89. Terrific score, ladies and gentlemen. Let's hear it for our cowboy, Dusty Farlow.
It would be hard to top the Mary Sue-ness of the character if he were a series regular. Of course, by the time he does return, he's got a bit more roundness to him. Lucy tracks down Ray and gets him to confide in her about Donna. He vents to her, so of course Lucy, in the most Lucy Ewing of Lucy Ewing moments, sneaks into his house and reads the letters. Ray catches her, and she yells at him for being a dumbass because the letters would have revealed that the Culver reconciliation was largely for show. Sam is dying, and Donna is just trying to help him go out peacefully. This is the best use of Lucy Ewing, the character that sees. She's like an adorable Munchkin version of Scott Bakula, putting things right that once went wrong. Ray calls Donna, and things seem to unfold nicely. Now he just has to avoid being a putz, and they can live happily ever after. Oh, who am I kidding? Back at the rodeo, it's neck and neck between Bobby and Dusty. But JR is ready to lay out the Cliff Barnes bait. He pairs Kristen and Alan together so everyone can see them getting into a fight. But in a twist, Alan and Kristen actually do wind up hating each other. Okay, so I know we have a running joke in this series about how Alan and JR have sexual chemistry, and everyone in the comments just kind of shrugs it off with a ha-ha, very funny, but clearly they're not gay. Well, there is a straight way to write this story, and that is to have Alan get the hots for Kristen and have his loyalties divided between ambition and his loins and write the love triangle that way. The very not straight way to write this story is to have Kristen and Alan scratch each other's eyeballs out while JR plays Ascot Daddy Dom.
I know men must find you very attractive. Why is a mystery to me.
That's not a straight guy thing to say. Straight guys don't talk about men like they're some kind of inscrutable exotic culture. Straight guys might say other men, noting that they're included in that group, and there really should be no mystery as to why men find Kristen Shepherd attractive. Even if you find her personality odious and off-putting, Jessica Fletcher is not needed here. This has been your Queer Film Theory Break. You're welcome. The plan works a little too well as Lucy sees the whole thing and immediately gets turned on by JR's disdain for Alan. She rushes over to hit on him, setting off a sea-level story thread that works with the plot, but not so much with the chemistry of the two players. See, if you don't write Alan as a queer character in the first place, you don't have to immediately circle back around and make sure that the audience knows that he's into women. Dusty and Suellen also watch the charade play out, and Dusty dryly notes that JR seems like a real Texas gentleman. JR sachets over, and good lord, the blocking of the scene is just fantastic. Look at the way that Dusty and Suellen are positioned and how isolated JR is. JR tries to big-time Dusty by talking about how possessive Texas men are about their women, and Dusty refuses to be intimidated, noting that he's a Texan too. And then, in the most alpha Chad-based, whatever made-up pseudo-scientific term the preoccupieds are using these days move, Dusty says he has to go ride, but he's gonna come back and find Suellen. And he does it right in front of JR. Check out the smirk on Sue. This scene is fantastic. Dusty rides a prize bull while Kristen and Suellen discuss Suellen's friendliness with Dusty. Suellen rightly remarks that Kristen is nervous that JR will start to want Suellen again if he thinks that other men are interested. She also sees through the charade with Alan Beam. Bobby tells Pam about getting bucked off the bull. Yeah, I'm sure getting bucked off an animal is exactly the story that Pamela wants to hear right now. Jesus, Robert James. They spot Digger and Miss Ellie walking together, and both of them panic about Digger revealing John Ross's parentage. Pam scolds Digger for showing up at all, but Miss Ellie shuts her down and says it's time for the feud to end. So clearly Digger knew to keep his mouth shut. Dusty does indeed find Suellen, and we get what is either a continuity gaffe or the most progressive scene to come out of 1979, as Dusty reveals that his family owns the Southern Cross Ranch in San Angelo, making him worth millions.
My folks own the Southern Cross Ranch.
Wait a minute. I thought the Wayne family owned that.
My mama's name is Farlow. Dusty Farlow.
A season later, though, we meet his father, Clayton Farlow. But knowing how enlightened and genial Clayton is, I'm gonna headcanon this as Clayton taking his wife's last name. I know it still doesn't make sense, but this is my show, damn it. Dusty says he lives as a poor person because when he was rich, he didn't like who he was becoming. Suellen gets a little freaked out by finding out that he's rich, so she tries to leave, and he rightly calls her out on her snobbery.
Rich or poor, Suellen, I am a person. I'm a man.
Jock and Digger number 2 come together for the first time, and there's a tense moment where no one knows whether Digger is going to make a scene. Jock describes JR3 as a Ewing through and through, which nearly triggers Digger. Digger storms out instead, goes right to the liquor table, downs a single drink, and leaves the ranch. If that wasn't such an irresponsible portrayal of an alcoholic, that would be a total baller move. Dusty continues to use his homespun cowboy insightfulness to drill through Suellen's veneer. She is too in the weeds with therapy, Baby John, Big Baby John, and everything else that she can't make a decision now. JR interrupts again and drags her upstairs in a scene that mirrors the morning John Ross III was conceived.
Can't stand to have you touch me. You disgust me.
It's a great, if disturbing, callback that Marchetta uses as a motif. A motif, remember, is a story element that recurs in such a way as to highlight a change in the character or story. In this case, Suellen repeats her admonition, "You disgust me," and JR presses on. But this time, instead of relenting to hate sex of a questionable consensual nature, she summons the strength to tell him to go find her little sister if he wants someone to appreciate his shriveled oil baron penis. And it works. JR makes a catty incel comment and storms out. And, in a blink and you'll miss it moment to sneak past the censors, Suellen climaxes to the announcement that Dusty Farlow is the world's greatest cowboy. No, seriously, let's take a closer look.
It gives me great pleasure to announce the best all-around cowboy, Dusty Farlow.
Back and to the left.
It gives me great pleasure to announce the best all-around cowboy, Dusty Farlow.
Back and to the
It gives me
left.
great pleasure to announce the best all-around cowboy, Dusty Farlow.
And we're out. Okay, so there's a lot to unpack. First, let's talk about Keenan Wynn's great portrayal of Digger here. He's like a sozzled sword of Damocles hanging over Jock and Miss Ellie's head, which creates some great tension for Pamby. I much prefer the Bobby and Pamela who are united with each other in trying to run around and solve the problems of all the evil screw-ups in their respective families. So instead, we get them involved in needless matrimonial squabbles for the next 4 seasons. Wynn's smile as he downs the drink and walks away is positively chilling, because A, that's totally not what I expected him to do, and B, it demonstrates an almost zen-like level of control that he has. It's like that scene in Lethal Weapon where Gary Busey holds his wrist over the cigarette lighter. And it leaves us wanting more, which is always the best style of storytelling. The other non-rodeo related thread that gets tugged is the return of Donna Culver, if in name only. And, true to form, the problem that prevents Donna and Ray's reunification is absolutely, totally, and in all other ways, Ray being a prideful dumbass.
Sam Culver must be a hard act to follow.
I don't ever think about that at all.
Well, at least he's consistent. But of course, the thing that you came here for was the debut of Dusty Farlow, the cowpoke with a heart of gold and the exact kind of big dick energy that Let's face it, Camille Marchetta is basically writing a romance novel in this episode, and Dusty is mommy porn fodder if it ever existed.
My folks own the Southern Cross Ranch.
Say what?
I mean, come on, she's trapped in a loveless marriage, and Dusty's literal first words to her are,
Let me help you, man.
From there, Suellen and Dusty's sexual chemistry threatens to burn the goddamn place to the ground. It doesn't hurt that the producers cast Jared Martin, a tall, lithe man with a steady, deep voice and piercing blue eyes, and honestly, who amongst us would not tap that? The best thing about Susty's chemistry... Susty? Does that work? Yeah, that works. The best thing about Susty's chemistry is that Dusty is savvy enough not to let Suellen get away with retreating into her cocoon.
I'm a man you happen to like. Admit it.
Suellen has been a victim throughout most of the series and allowed her husband to walk all over her. And the one time she let herself open up and believe in someone, that someone was Cliff friggin' Barnes.
Maybe you can't fight City Hall?
So what does she do? She walls herself off. From her husband, from her family, even from her newborn son. But Dusty's just not having that nonsense, and even though he ultimately walks away to respect her boundaries, he does so only after breaking through that charade of invulnerability. Suellen is forced to confront the fact that she has desires, and that she can be hurt by them, and that the pain that comes from love is just the cost of doing business in life. This Dusty situation, of course, isn't over, and in fact it's one of the most significant in Dallas canon. Rodeo is an excellent episode, one of the series' best at bringing together everything the characters are going through all at once and pushing it through to the other side with momentum. Ray has a potential love interest that's his own age. Bobby and Pam have graduated from that neurofibromatosis storyline.
Neurofibromatosis.
Digger is a loose cannon. And J.R. Allen and Kristen's plan has started rolling in earnest.